But what comes with people that have an athletic background is kind of earlier to what I was mentioning about hockey. They're people that have been put in difficult situations, challenges, and they've persevered through that, right? Not only that, they've been involved with coaches and people that are hard on them, people that are direct, people that challenge them, stretch them out of their comfort zone. And then they have that inner tick or that self-motivation, because you got to trust that somebody's out there training, getting better, getting up and working, and you're not watching them.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fisher Search Group podcast. Brett Fisher here with the Fisher Search Group, and I am joined today with one of my colleagues in the medical device space. His name is Dusty Dorran. Really pleased to bring him on. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about sales leadership in our episode, How to Lead First and Manage Second. Seekers to a thriving sales team with my colleague, Dusty Dorran. So thank you for joining us. I know you're coming to us from the middle of the country out in Texas, which I get out to about once a year for my recruiting group. But thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. I've been looking forward to catching up and speaking with you about the leadership topic.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to give our audience a quick breakdown of your background. For those of us just joining Fisher Search Group podcast, we are medical device sales recruiters looking to interview leaders in the recruitment and medical device space. I have Dusty Dorran with me, born and raised in Old Alberta, Canada. So coming to us from Canada, undergraduate degree, Oklahoma State University, MBA from University of Central Oklahoma. So right next door to where you are right now. Currently residing in Prosper, Texas. 3 kids like me, Hudson, Hannah, and Hayden. Give them a shout out. Medical sales career spanning 16 years with 4 years starting off as a territory manager, 7 years as a regional vice president, and then now 5 years as an area vice president. Some accolades include RVP of the Year and Elite Club winner, area vice president, Elite Club winner. Outside of work, Dusty enjoys hockey, golf, circuit training, and then watching his kids in hockey and cheer. So I can appreciate all of that. So welcome. You're in the 3-kid club as well. So am I. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'd love to turn things over to you. Give us a quick overview, maybe about your journey getting into sales leadership within medical devices.
Yeah, so my journey started a little over 16 years ago getting into medical sales. I was doing animal health sales, pharmaceutical sales prior to that, and had an interest in getting into medical sales because of the uncapped commission. So really had an interest. I started networking with a recruiter out in California, and an opportunity came up with the company I'm with now in their ear, nose, and throat division. And going into the interview process, I had no idea what I needed to do to set myself apart, because I'm sure I'm going against some experienced, talented individuals. And as it started to unfold, I thought to myself, I need to outwork them. But how can I do that? Because that's what I get to show in an interview. And so I started going and calling on different ear, nose, and throat surgeons, visiting with them in their clinics, getting their business cards, getting commitments from them to go into the operating room and observe them in surgery. And throughout that process, I was communicating back with the regional manager and was fortunate enough to win the opportunity and get a job as a territory manager covering the state of Oklahoma. My interest, though, in the leadership side of things started early on. I grew up playing hockey, which has got captains and assistants and leaders in those teams, and it's all about the team. It's a team first. You'll never hear a hockey player talk about themselves, say I in conversations. It's always we. So I really gravitated towards the leadership back when I was a little kid. And as soon as I got on with Olympus, I had aspirations first to get in to be a field sales trainer and then to get into management, to become a leader and to help people stretch and get out of their comfort zone and hit their personal and professional goals. And an opportunity came when I was just 31 years old and had to move the family from Oklahoma City down to Austin, Texas. So I was very fortunate to get that opportunity. And I led a team where I was the youngest person on the team and everyone else was very tenured and experienced, and just started from there. And I just had a passion for it. I was very fortunate in my career to have very strong mentors. My previous president and vice president, they were huge and instrumental in my development. And then my current boss I report to is the president of our division, and he was a peer of mine, I guess 12, 13 years ago. And he's been critical to me having success as well. And he's he's not just a friend, but a mentor. So that's kind of my path getting into leadership. And at the end of the day, it's all about the people and trying to help people reach their goals. And I love that.
Amazing. So what brought you down from Canada?
So I grew up in a small agriculture community. If you went back to Olds, Alberta, it's all farmers and oil and gas.
Okay.
I grew up raising purebred Black Angus cattle and showing cattle. And
Wow.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do career-wise, and had a conversation with my dad, and he suggested us going and taking a look at Oklahoma State University because they had a very good animal science program. And I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. So we came down, toured the campus, and I was accepted, got into it. So started going to school and taking animal science, and was on the livestock judging team and the club ice hockey team. And my experience couldn't have went any better at OSU. I really loved my time there.
It's amazing how that part of your youth and growing up got you down here, but then once you got down here, then you went from animal science into the medical device and then the sales side of things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and kind of the reason for that, the animal health side, I was calling on veterinarians, cow-calf operations, feedlots, and I love that
Sure.
part of it. But also that the ambitious side of me, the financial side, was earning those uncapped commissions and really trying to dig yourself into that and make a career of it. And the medical sales world at the time was a very lucrative field for sales representatives. And I wanted to go and compete with the best of the best out there. And I wanted to have an opportunity at it. And I made the shift. I still have love and passion towards the purebred cattle industry. Grew up around that. Everybody in my family is still involved in that and very successful with it in both Canada and the US. But got my feet dug in on medical sales.
Well, I love it. Before we jump into the leadership side of things, which is really what I want to talk about today, your sports journey, your experience in sports, specifically hockey, you don't hear that very often. We hear a lot of, baseball, soccer, football, but hockey is, you just don't hear it too much here in the US. But how important was that playing into you getting into sales?
Yeah, for me, a bit of the competitive side of hockey, right? You're a part of it in the team environment. Everything's about the team. Everything's about preparation. Your coaches, when you have good coaches like I did growing up, they provide structure. They provide a process. So it really starts to form your strong work ethics and your acceptance to following other leaders, but then getting people to follow you. And at the end of the day, hockey teaches you it's all about the team. It's a team first mentality, and that's how you start to build that winning culture. And just gravitated towards sales that way, and try and instill those types of characteristics on the teams that I lead.
When you're interviewing, I'm just going to jump. It's so interesting. Do you try to find athletes who have that athletic background, like collegiate athletes, when you're looking for that in terms of your interviews?
Yeah, a great question. Would prefer, but open to every walks of life, right? There's more diversified team that you can have, the better and stronger the team is. But what comes with people that have an athletic background is kind of earlier to what I was mentioning about hockey. They're people that have been put in difficult situations, challenges, and they've persevered through that, right? Not only that, they've been involved with coaches and people that are hard on them, people that are direct, people that challenge them, stretch them out of their comfort zone. And then they have that inner tick or that self-motivation, because you got to trust that somebody's out there training, getting better, getting up and working, and you're not watching them, right? And usually the most successful athletes and people that get on to playing college sports and pro sports are people that go and do the extraordinary things that normal people aren't doing. And I kind of relate that with sales, and I share with my teams, and people laugh. You want everyone thinking, when you work, I work. When you sleep, I work. You'll never outcompete me. And when you hear stories about people like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, they're doing those things when people are watching TV, playing video games. They're stepping outside of their comfort zone and doing extraordinary things, and that's why they're the elite. And so one of the questions I always ask in an interview too is, outside normal working hours from 8 to 5, what do you do? What do you do to get better? Because if people only just show up and work from 8 to 5, that's average. You don't want average. And Nick Saban says all the time, he's got a saying, mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocre people. And so you want people that are going to spend the time 2-3 hours before the day starts, 2 or 3 hours in the evening to get better.
I love that. I
So
love that.
you look for that in the interview process and try and pull it out of people.
Let's jump ahead to leadership. This has been a great intro. For those of us just joining us, we are in episode 9 of the Fisher Search Group podcast, Recruitment Leadership, joined by my colleague, Dusty Dorran from Texas. And I'm so excited to talk about leadership today. If you enjoy this, please like, subscribe, comment below. Let's dive into the title, Lead People First, Manage Second. How did you come up with this?
Yeah, no. So I always hated when people said, I'm a manager, because when you are a manager, you're in a leadership position. The job of a leader is to get people to follow them, right? Is to implement strategy, is to implement direction. And I feel when people have the mindset of a leader, of a manager, they're just managing people's tasks, the things that they do. They're not really challenging them. They're not coaching them. They're not getting them to do more and do things that'll push them out of their comfort zone. And that leader really does that. They'll go and set the stage. They'll set an example. They lead out in front. They never ask you to do anything that they aren't willing to do. They're good listeners. They help come up with solutions together. And managers, that mentality is more like check the box on doing mid-year reviews, end-of-the-year reviews, ride with your reps in the field. But there's so much more to it than just that management side. It's a leader does all of it. A manager just manages tasks and duties. So if you can get out of that mindset of going from manager to leader, you'd be successful with people.
So I love that. What comes to mind is like the player coach mentality where you're willing to get out there and grind, but then to show them how it's done, but then also support them so that they can be successful at doing it, as opposed to just being on the sidelines and maybe just like you said, checking the box. I did my field right. I did this. Like they're not afraid to get out there and do the work, meet with the customer, have the difficult conversations, and model that for their employees. Is that sort of what you mean by lead first, manage second?
Yeah, exactly. A good example of that is when you're a regional vice president and you're working with your sales representatives. You're out in the field with them and you're teaching them, not only do you have a sales process, but within that sales process, especially on large opportunities, that manager is out in the field with them. And what they're doing is they're going and building relationships at a high level, call it a C-suite, with CEOs, CFOs, COOs, OR directors, chiefs of supply chain. And they're developing those relationships from the top. And then the sales reps going and developing relationships with clinic managers, medical assistants, the surgeons, people in materials management, and you're hoping that they're driving the opportunities up and the regional VPs driving them down. So they're doing it together. Somebody that doesn't do that just leaves it for the sales representative to do it all on their own. And that's not the kind of person that we want on our team. We want a leader that's out there with their people and they've rolled up their sleeves and they're right in the thick of it with their team.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. You've given us a great high-level intro of who you are, who you've become as a leader. Can you share with me now how you've been able to keep, I know we talked about strong culture in our brainstorming, minimal turnover, this environment that you're creating as a leader. Give me some insights there. That would be really great.
Yeah. So as a leader, it all starts with the people, right? And you're trying to create a culture. And what we like to say is a winning culture. And how you do that is you're working on people's mentality, their attitude, their work ethics. You're instilling that so that they have the confidence when they're representing your brand. They're walking into that facility or that clinic building with their head held high, their shoulders back, their chest out. They're really proud to go in there and do what they do. And they're representing the gold standard. You want that mentality, right? To have a little bit of that swagger. So that's the culture that we're trying to build consistently. When you talk about the people within that and retention, a lot of it is you have to make people feel valued and appreciated. You're recognizing them not just for their sales performance success, but also the things they do professionally. So you need to acknowledge what people do. Sometimes the small things matter to them and they count more than what people realize. So you need to show appreciation for that. The other part of it is when you have individual development plans for every single person on your team, you're helping them achieve their individual goals, both personally and professionally. that will set you apart as a leader as well. When people not only feel valued and appreciated, but you're helping them go after what they want to do professionally. Sometimes that's worth a lot more than the financial side of it. And they stay with you because they feel that, right? So those are a lot of the things that we focus on, because the most important part of a leader too is not only hiring the right people, but it's also retaining them and getting them to where they need to be. And a good leader creates other leaders.
So let's talk about that for a second. So in terms of keys to career growth, this is our next section. How can aspiring leaders elevate themselves within an organization? You started with the individual performance plan, so now they're acting on that. How can they then take that to be able to move up and around within an organization?
Yeah, so being in a sales organization, you obviously have to do well at sales consistently, right? To put yourself, I've done it, and this is how I've been successful. Now you've elevated yourself into a position where people are looking at you to lead. What I would recommend doing, you need to have multiple mentors within an organization. And sometimes they're across different departments, sometimes they're across different divisions, and sometimes they're even peers. So you need to look to have different mentors. And then also the other things that we need to help people do is they need to get exposure to other senior leaders within a company so that they can see the good things that they're doing, whether it's coming and attending a meeting and presenting on a topic, if it's leading a regional event or an area event. Those people get experience and exposure because you want to showcase their skill sets. And that person, if they're willing to do that and put themselves out there and stretch out of their comfort zone, they're going to now get the experience. So we talk a lot about that with people, that if I'm trying to work with someone to prepare them for the next level, for example, a regional VP, I want to do all the things with them that a regional manager does so that when they go to interview for that position, they've done all those things, right? They've coached people. They've had one-on-ones. They've been a part of large opportunity meetings. They've led regional events. They've presented at the national sales meetings. They've been in disciplinary conversations, having difficult conversations. All those aspects help prepare somebody for the next level. And that's what you need to do to partially to retain people, but help people get to the next level to enjoy that next position.
It's beautiful in terms of setting up the future. I was going to jump into that difficult conversation in terms of PIPs, performance improvement plans, disciplinary. So are they sitting in like as an assistant manager, or how are you including them in something which is a difficult conversation with a rep? So help me understand this one.
Yeah. So if you're ever involving somebody, a part of a performance counseling meeting to help with improvement, whether it's sales wise or professionally, usually we would introduce that person that John is sitting in this meeting with us today because not only are they learning, but they're also here from a coaching aspect to help provide their experience and their recommendations. So you set it up in a positive situation for everybody. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to put people on performance improvement plans. Sometimes it's necessary and it needs to happen, but the goal is to help them through that, right? So you need to create that positive environment as you're doing that, and having that person in there as a third party, they get that experience, because as a result, sometimes it's direct, difficult conversations and they're a part of it. They can see how it's handled, but then also they get to lead it too.
I love that. I love that. So we're about to start the third section of our Fisher Search Group podcast. This is episode 9. We are talking about leading first, managing second. These are some top tips from my colleague, Dusty Dorran. We are going to be talking now about hiring and interviewing. So now it's about getting the right people in and on the team. I know every organization has a unique process. You may have some extra steps in the process, but I'd love for you to open up the curtain, help us understand what you're looking for, and maybe anything unique about your interview process that helps get the right people across the finish line.
Yeah, no, great question. This is, as a manager, hiring manager, the most important part of your job is hiring, right? And I'll start with the interview process. So typically what we do is we get a series of resumes in our database, and we go through it and do resume screening. So we're looking through different experiences and accolades that those individuals have, and we start screening it with our inside talent acquisition team. Once we've narrowed it down, we then move forward to a phone screen. So the phone screen is typically 30 minutes. You're just having a conversation with someone to get to know them, see if there's chemistry, go through a little bit of their resume to make sure that they're the right fit. And you share a little bit about the company, the position, compensation, and then you move forward from there. The candidates that move forward go to the next stage would be a virtual meeting. And that's typically an hour. And that gets into more of a traditional interview where you're going through a deep dive into the resume, understanding why they transition from position to position and going through their achievements, but then also the difficult situations from a previous job. And then after that, what we like to do in the next step is move them forward to interviewing with different peers, people that would be their peer. So we set them up on calls, just very general 30-minute calls to get to know someone, ask about working for the company, ask about working for that specific hiring manager. And you're vetting people through, because sometimes people will let their guard down. Do they ask for the support to move on? Do they send a follow-up thank you? All those things are important. And that's how we judge people through the interview process. However they act in the interview process is how we assume they act in the field. So if you're not closing, we assume you don't close. If you don't follow up and show appreciation to the customer, this being people you're interviewing with, we think you don't follow up with the customer. So from that call it the third stage of the interview process with the reps or managers out there, we would move forward to a final interview where it's face-to-face, and it's probably typically your final 2 to 3 candidates. And that's about a 2-hour process where you're interviewing, asking scenario-based questions, but then we have everybody present. And what we typically do is we'll have them prepare a business plan. It's the first 90 days, 6 months, and a year. What are you going to accomplish inside that? Because we actually go back to it after we've hired someone to see if they do what they said they were going to do. But I don't like the 30, 60, 90-day business plans. It's so generic nowadays. People can go to GPT and they can get answers and they don't have to do any work. But when you start doing the 96 months in 1 year, people have to think, because when they get in a position, we're trying to stretch them thinking longer term, right? And then from there, we'll narrow it down to 1 or 2 candidates and move it on to a final interview, which is typically with myself, the area vice president, and sometimes even our business unit vice president. And that we'll do virtually or face-to-face, depending on the circumstance. And we typically find the right people, right? There's obviously some people that don't turn out or leave the company for other reasons, but that's knock on wood, that's worked for us over the last several years. The other part of your question is what we look for when we're interviewing. So this is a lot of its preference, and it's part of the culture that you're building. And for me, when I get asked a question, what am I looking for? I share with people relative to medical sales, we can teach products, procedures, anatomy. I'm not concerned about that. But what I'm trying to identify are people that, number one, come with work ethics for all the reasons what I shared earlier. I want people that are going to outwork the competition every single day, right? Yes. We have to trust that they're going to do that. You can't do medical sales from 8 to 5. Anybody that tries, you just end up being average. The second thing is resilience, right? You're going to get told no 9 times in a day. We're looking for those people that are going to go out there and they're going to look for a 10th meeting, because they're trying to get a maybe or a yes. And those people that are resilient have grit, right? Because they're not taking no for an answer. And that goes back to that athletes are really good in that section part, what we're looking for. And the final piece is business acumen. And you don't have to know anything about the healthcare industry initially, but if you understand business and how to bring value to a customer and how to talk through the financial implications, how to talk through reimbursement and learn and you're acceptable to coaching that way, that goes a long way. So we combine those 3 things, and that's what we look for. We end up identifying people that are a good fit for the job. Along the way, you hear this too a lot of times, and you pick this up through interviewing. You want people that have a good emotional intelligence. They can read the room, right? When you're in surgery, you got to have, there's 6 or 7 other people in there that are a part of that procedure. and you got to know when to talk, when not to talk. So that sort of thing's important. And then agility intelligence, people that are smart and they can adapt and change, because you have to change, be a chameleon, but you have to change on the fly a lot of times, whether it's in surgery, if it's in the C-suite in a meeting, when you're presenting, because you get thrown curveballs and questions sometimes that you're not used to. When you're managing and leading a team, you have so many different types of personalities. You have to have that agility to switch from leading this kind of person to leading that kind of person. So the agility intelligence and emotional intelligence are both extremely important when looking for people.
There's so much there. Going back to when you first started talking about your interview process, I am so glad you pointed out two very important things. I'm going to repeat them now for our audiences to really digest. And the first most important thing is that your interview process, how you carry yourself through that process, is most likely how you're going to be with your customer. So in terms of your closing, your endorsement, your follow-up, the speed by which you're navigating through to get to those people. I was really curious about when you set the candidates up with peers, are they actually teed up? Or do you just say, hey, go try to find so-and-so, and it's up to them to chase them down and try to pin them down and make the appointment? I don't know if you try to make it more challenging or not, but just the fact that you pointed out they need to carry themselves through the process just like it was if it was their most important account. So that's the first important point. The second one really had to do with the agility intelligence and being able to really move. I have not heard that. You hear about work ethic, grit, business mindset, but the agility intelligence, I'm curious how you sort of, you pick up on that, or you hear them having used that in prior situations. I guess interviewing for that and testing for that is something which I'd be very curious how you're picking up on that through the interview process.
Yeah, picking up through the interview process, you'd get that from scenario-based questions. So
okay.
yeah, yep. If they've led before, you can kind of ask about experiences where they've been in difficult situations or managed different personalities and how they pivoted and adjusted to that. If you're interviewing sales representatives too, you'd put them through situational questions that, how do they handle a difficult conversation? How did they ask, or how did they handle a customer asking them to be here and another customer asking them to be there at the same time? So there's all sorts of different things that you have to be able to pivot and adjust to. And I just want to hit on one thing that you were asking in regards to the 2 to 3 sales representatives that we put them in contact with. Do we give it to them, or do we allow them to go chase it?
Right.
I guess there's 2 schools of thought. There's some people that would say, I'm not giving you any contacts. You need to figure that out. And that's fine. One of the things, I don't like playing games. Sure. We don't have time to play games. We'll figure out if the person's hungry through the interview process and how they show up, and how they show up when they have to present, because the detail and the time somebody puts into a presentation, you can tell it separates them. So I don't need to play games. I like giving people the contact, and what I'm doing is providing coaching. Here's John, here's their phone number, their email. You need to reach out to them inside 24 hours, set up time to talk, and then get back to me with bullet points on what you learned from that conversation. So now I'm coaching them and seeing if they follow directions and see if they get back to me. After coaching someone, if they didn't do it, they're not coachable.
Right.
Right.
Perfect test.
So that's the side I come from.
Yeah. The other call out I wanted to make earlier was on your recommendation to do was it like a 90-day, 6-month, and 1-year plan, as opposed to sort of like the cliche 30, 60, 90? You hear that a lot, but to actually think past those 90 days to 6 months, and then what does the 1 year look like? That definitely stands out. And I would tell our community, I would tell candidates that I coach that they should be doing that instead. So thank you for that. We're coming up here on our 30 minutes. I want to close things out. Before I do, is there a surprise or favorite interview question that you like to use in your interviews?
Yeah. And it came to me when I was first getting into medical sales from another company. And that question that I've carried on for the last 16 years in every interview is, do you like to win or hate to lose? And I let the candidates know there's no right or wrong answer. It's how you answer it. Right. But at the end of the day, what I would prefer to hear from someone is everybody likes to win. That's a given. But true competitors, fierce competitors, hate to lose. They'll do everything at all costs within the ethical boundaries
Sure.
to win. And you think of, and I'll just relate it to hockey. When hockey players get into the playoffs, they have such a strong commitment to winning a championship. They'll run through a wall. They play with broken bones, broken ribs. They block shots with any part of their body, sometimes their face. And it's because they're wanting to win at all costs
Oh,
because
wow.
they hate losing so badly. They'll do anything to win, anything for their team. And that's the mentality we want from people, because the ones that just like to win, everybody likes to win. But
Right.
show me a little edge, some swagger and confidence, and that desire to win at all costs, that you're going to outwork everybody that's competing with you.
I've heard that multiple times now on the episode. So thank you for reinforcing that. You're going to outwork your competition. That's what we're looking for, and that's what it takes to win. I love the sports background. Real quick, work-life balance outside of work. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm a big routine person, and I try and whatever I do and say that I'm going to do, I do, and vice versa with the team, right? So it's part of the process and structure away from work and at work. But for me, every day I'm getting up at 4:30 and I'm going and doing circuit training
Wow.
at a fitness place that my son goes to with his strength coach. He does it later after school. I do it in the morning. I can go and spend an hour doing that. It's important to have a healthy body, healthy mind. It gives you more energy throughout the day. And there's other things that go into that. Not only when I come back, reviewing the tasks that I need to do for the next day, I'm reviewing my goals that I have now and for the coming years. I'm spending time on personal development. And by doing that for 2 to 3 hours every day, I've done more than some people are still sleeping, right?
Love that.
So
Inspirational leaders, real quick.
yeah, no,
Learnings, like who are you listening to? Where are you learning from?
yeah, no, there's a lot of them. I'd say the two that I listen to the most right now, Nick Saban.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you why. He talks a lot about in their facilities when he was coaching Alabama was play like a champion. Don't worry about the outcome, but trust the process that we have. Trust the blueprint that we have. And we try and bring that to our organization on our team right now. And it's that exact mindset, because we're trying to build in Alabama. And there's no second places. We don't want people that are okay coming in second or third. We want people that like to win, and they're going to go through a process, and the best of the best will rise. And so I love Nick Saban's just philosophy on leadership and culture. And he is a direct, accountable person. He holds accountability, and that's important, right? If you want to be successful, you need to be accountable for yourself and for others. The other one that we've talked about before is Gary Brecka. Who's a human biologist that just focuses on the healthy body and mind. That's important too, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So it's important to focus on that. In my early years in management, I didn't spend time focusing on myself. It was just run and gun out in the field, traveling and eating bad. And when I found that I took a step back and spent time on myself, on personal development and the health side of it, I became a better leader. I showed up better. You're healthier, you're happier, you're more positive. And so it's worth it. It's a bit of an adjustment, but it's worth it.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've talked about some really great things around sales leadership, how you got into sales leadership, how others can now transition into sales leadership by extra things that they can do while they're still in that previous position. We also did a great section. You took us through your hiring process, some really great call outs there. Favorite interview question. If anyone watches this before they ever interview with you, they're going to have a leg up for sure. And then finally, the importance of what you're doing with yourself outside of work, healthy mind, healthy body, holding yourself accountable so that you can hold your team accountable. So I just love what you said there. In conclusion, anything else you'd like to leave our listeners? We do this for our respective communities. I started the Fisher Search Group podcast last year because there's just a large group of people that we can't directly help. We take people through interview process, every week, every month, but then there's just a lot of people we want to be able to help. So having conversations like this is going to impact someone. They're going to listen to it. It's going to change their life. They're going to get up an hour earlier. They're going to be doing that 90-day, 6-month, 1-year plan. They're going to be going through that interview process so seriously, like it's their most important prospective client, all because of this. So I can't thank you enough. Is there anything you want to leave us with today?
Just, I guess the only thing at the end of the day, we all have a choice, right?
Yeah.
You have a choice if you want to be good, or you want to be excellent, or you want to be elite. And the elite people go above and beyond, and they do things that other people aren't willing to do. And going back to the leadership side of things, they do more for their team than anybody else would possibly do. You got to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone. Sometimes leaders got to work longer, harder hours than anybody else, but it's for the right reasons and it's for their people. And I think if somebody's interested in leadership, push yourself out of your comfort zone 100%. It is uncomfortable going through interviews for it, getting on stage and giving presentations. That's the only way you're going to get better. And if anyone ever wants to reach out and talk about it, I've always encouraged the people at our company, I'm all ears to help people for the next level, interviewing, anything. But outside our company, people can reach out to me on LinkedIn and send a message, and I'll be happy to set up time and talk with them. That's part of being a good person and a good leader, is you're extending yourself to help other people, because that's what it's about. It's about people.
I love it. You have been incredible today, and generous with your time, generous with me, generous with our community. And it's all gonna come back, and I think everyone's gonna really appreciate it. So Dusty Dorran, everyone, and thank you for being here. And I can't wait to catch up with you soon and hear some lives that have been impacted, and certainly just to follow you, and just so everyone knows, you've been now with your company for like 16 years, right? So you have we don't see that very often, let me tell you. We'll see 4, 8, 10, and then it just drops off. I think people are making changes, but to be there shows just an unwavering commitment. They're doing something right. They're retaining top talent, and that's what you want. So I'm sure it's a testament. Thank you. And I appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you.